The transfer portal's on fire. I mean, the transfer portal should be the number one story in college football right now. The problem is they haven't made me commissioner yet. Therefore, we have not been able to implement our brand new idea for a college football calendar. And so, unfortunately, right now, you're having to focus on actual games on the field and then also coaching searches and then early signing day coming up and the transfer portal all at the same time. And under our format that I think we're going to go ahead and put out there Thursday, write that in pencil, that I think we're going to put out there Thursday, we will take care of all this. But until then, we got to talk about all of it in this jumbled mess right in mid-December. Huge names floating out there right now. The biggest of which is obviously Quinn Ewers. That was the number one overall player in the past cycle, number one quarterback, and he goes to Ohio State. Forgoes his senior year in high school, might I add, and goes to Ohio State. He's already out. He's in the transfer portal, and now we got to know where he's going to go. Now, Texas was the just presumed favorite to land him. And maybe if we're putting odds out there, they still are. But there is a lot of smoke around Texas Tech. They got a new coaching staff in there. They have promised him the world in terms of production and in terms of being able to put up, miles and miles of offensive yardage. And they're right about that. He would. It's kind of a weird headline. Top overall quarterback in the country, possibly linked with Texas Tech. But a lot of folks out there love that. A lot of other folks out there look at it and say, what are you doing? I don't really care either way. I'm just here to tell you what's going on. But I would pay attention very closely in the coming days to that, because that is, and I cannot overstate this enough, that is a massive puzzle piece out there to the future national championship picture that's just floating. And if Sark lands him, and to be clear, Texas has a clearer path to starting at quarterback than Texas Tech does, as crazy as that sounds. If Sark lands him, I mean, how many people all of a sudden go, uh-oh. It's like this year, they had revolving door, merry-go-round, I guess, at quarterback. And then if you land Quinn Ewers, he's going to start. You got Casey Thompson and Hudson Card still there. He's going to start. He's probably not going there if he isn't pretty sure he's going to start. This is a huge story. This is a monumental story because that guy, from a skill set, just from a raw skill set alone, is like few that you've ever seen play this game. Now, it takes more than that to play the game, but raw skill set is through the roof. What about Jaden Hazelwood? This is a guy who is no longer in the transfer portal. Jaden Hazelwood has already landed. This is a former high 4-star, 5-star kind of receiver, depending on where you're looking. And we work at 24/7, so that's where we look. I'm so used to saying that back in my radio days because I wanted to be equal. We're not equal anymore. We play favorites here. Jaden Hazelwood was from Georgia. He went to Oklahoma. And now he entered the transfer portal, and he has landed at Arkansas. And this was the number one overall wide receiver prospect in the 2019 recruiting cycle. This is large, obviously, for Sam Pittman just on the surface, but when you also consider that a guy by the name of Treylon Burks has to be replaced, and he was an alpha stud type at receiver this year for them. I think he won the Texas A&M game for him. He was huge all year long. Jaden Hazelwood comes in at the perfect time. But this is what also you need to watch more and more of. Obviously, if you have a coaching change, then there's a lot that could be in play. But let's pretend for a second that we're not just talking about a program that had a coaching change and therefore some of their players wanted to move on. Think about what Bama's doing this year. On both sides of this coin, Alabama benefits from Ohio State having a crowded wide receiver room, and they get arguably the best wide receiver in the country this year in Jamison Williams. That wouldn't have happened if Ohio State wasn't as loaded as they were. But then the other side of the coin, Alabama has found themselves in dire straits down the stretch at running back. Well, why? Because Keelan Robinson's not there anymore. Because a crowded running back room led to Keelan Robinson, who was a high 4-star talent in his own right from the previous cycle, leaving and going to Texas. Well, then a bunch of injuries happen, and all of a sudden, you don't have any depth there. Even though if you're just remembering recruiting from the past couple of cycles, you think Bama's taken like 100 running backs. Yeah, they didn't all stay. Ohio State's taken like 100 receivers. Yeah, they didn't all stay. And programs like Arkansas are going to be able to benefit from that if they know how to leverage this thing properly. So this is big for Arkansas. Now, you talk about big in the last hour. 2 names, one of them, I guess, in the last hour popped. Max Johnson has entered the transfer portal. That was the starting quarterback for LSU this year, has entered the transfer portal. Now, it's not official until they land somewhere else. So theoretically, he could come out of the transfer portal and stay at LSU. Stands to reason he probably intends to leave. That's normally what you mean to do when you enter the portal. I'm not sure what to make of this. I do know that, obviously, you got a new coaching staff down there, and if you're Brian Kelly, you want to find the right kind of system fits. You also don't know if Brian Kelly has his eyes on high-profile quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Now, I'm not trying to float rumors because I don't know anything firsthand. I'm just saying the transfer portal is not a picture that you try and figure out as it's going on. This happened with Georgia this time last year. It looked like they were going to be gutted in the secondary, and then all of a sudden, by the time they got to the season, they had made 2 big acquisitions in the portal, and all of a sudden, everything looked right. And it could be the same way with LSU. I know it looks like the world's burning, and it's just Hindenburg college football style right now. Let's let the whole cycle play out, and then we'll judge it. So, Max Johnson, this is just in the last hour this has happened, so obviously there's not a whole lot of reaction there. But Eli Ricks has been in there for a couple of days. Eli Ricks was the number 2 ranked corner prospect in 2020. He is the top-rated corner prospect in the transfer portal right now. Now, here's what's interesting, and here's why I'm talking about him. Ohio State looked to be possibly the destination for him. And then all of a sudden, we get Chris Hummer right here at 24/7 today reporting that Ohio State's out of it. Unless something changes, they're out of it. What most people took that to mean is they don't want to mess their current recruiting class up by bringing Ricks in, which could then cause some decommitments, et cetera, which is always the fine balance that you have to strike. All the major programs have to do this. How do we balance the talent we could get out of the portal with early signing day coming up? And that not only is a factor here with Ricks, but also it's a factor with all these guys. You want to take 1 or 2 of them, but at the same time, you don't want to take him at the expense of disrupting a very, very good recruiting class about a week before the early signing day. So you got to be careful there. Eli Ricks, though, you've still got Georgia in this. Alabama is heavily in this. USC's in this. It all circles back to the right fit. He's got to want to go there, and also you got to have room for him. The last name I wanted to touch on is Zach Evans. Zach Evans is a 7 yards per carry guy, a couple of years in now at TCU. Former 5-star running back. Remember, all the talk was about how talented he was on the field and how questionable he was off the field. Well, you got 2 years of college sample size now, and so you kind of know what you're dealing with. At least you would hope you do. And so Tennessee's in this. Ole Miss is in this. He's already taken a visit to Ole Miss. I would assume that Ole Miss is the betting favorite right now. Really interested if Tennessee gets him on campus this weekend, which it looks like they will. If Josh Heupel and Tennessee can work their magic, this is going to be a really, really big pickup. Whoever gets him, it's going to be a very, very big pickup. The transfer portal is on fire right now. It's just getting started. Remember, we have multiple waves of this. We had it last year. We'll have it again this year. And also, it's not settled when we go into spring. A lot of guys are waiting to go through spring practice before they make their ultimate portal decision. So we'll have another wave of them come out after spring ball. This is truly a year-round sport right now, and you got to cover it as such. There you see the top 10 players right now in the portal. You got some quarterbacks out there. I mean, Spencer Rattler is in the portal. I didn't even talk about him. That's how loaded it is right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back from Georgia Tech, is a phenomenal back. If Alabama's got room for him, he's going to Bama.